Reverend Sharpton and our leaders arrived. Come on, give it up. Come on, put the banner right here in front. We need Reverend Sharpton. We need Senator Jones, Bishop Rudolph McKissick, and R.B. Holmes on stage. Everyone else, please stay out front. Come on, Senator Jones, Reverend Sharpton, and Bishop McKissick. Please come to the podium. Everyone, please stay out front. Thank you so much. Where's Reverend R.B. Holmes?
Just keep in mind the mic is going to be on at all times. It doesn't turn off, so it's going to pick up all the conversation. Is it hot? Yes.
Let me yell and cuss. Now, just hold this for me.
Okay. We'll probably be the easiest to have them. Excuse me, all those who are standing in front here, I need the part right so much. If you're standing on this side of the rail, you're on the wrong side. Thank you. We're trying to get all those cameras in the back a shot, so can we please get y'all to move to the side? Thank you. And people sitting down behind you, they can't see. So please stand to the side. Thank you so much.
Yeah, whatever. Yes, sir. What's the rundown? And are we marching back? Well, he should wait till the rest of the march.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
You get them me, and then I'm gonna bring the senator up when I get. You got her.
Oh, we gotta wait a minute. Yeah. Reign with the harmony of liberty. Let our rejoice be skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the hope that the darkness has taught us. Reverend Sharpton. Okay. Hey, Jerry, you have the saxophone? You good? We good? We good then. Oh my goodness. Oh, she good. Reverend. We all right about it? How we doing? Okay.
People are blocking the cameras. Those people are blocking the cameras. You know, the people standing. I don't know if you can make any kind of announcement.
Yes, you should. What you saying, sir?
They're blocking. Everyone's standing. They're blocking all the cameras.
That's fine. That's right.
The cameras aren't going to.
Thank you. Reverend Sharpton, Reverend clergy, elected officials, media, brothers and sisters from far and near. The Reverend Marcus McCoy will lead us in opening prayer.
What a friend we have in Jesus, all of our sins and griefs to bear. What a privilege it is to carry everything to God in prayer. Let us pray. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, thou who hast by thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in the path, we pray. Father, in the name of your only begotten Son, Jesus the Christ, before we ask you of anything in this moment, we pause and thank you for everything. We thank you, kind Father, for this day and declare that this is the day that you have made. And despite the trials of injustice, oppression, and depression, we are facing, God, without reservation, hesitation, or equivocation. We declare that justice will roll down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. God, do not allow our coming to be in vain, but show up like you did for your children that were in Babylonian captivity. God, show up today like you did for Daniel that was in the lion's den. God, show up today like you did for Moses at the Red Sea. God,
that American history is black history. Let me be clear. Black history does not like educational values. Black history is not trash. Black history is not junk, Mr. Governor, and black history is not inferior. We have come to say to this country that our history will not be whitewashed, watered down, demeaned, not marginalized. We're not here to put down anybody's history. We're here to say that our history will not be not disrespected by anyone. That's right. And black history does not make anybody uncomfortable. Racism makes people uncomfortable. Injustice makes people uncomfortable. The lack of diversity makes people uncomfortable. We will tell our story. It doesn't matter who wrote our history. It doesn't matter about sexual orientation, our gender, our race, our religion. We stand for diversity. We stand for equality. We stand for inclusion, and ain't nobody gonna turn us around. This is a movement to say to this governor, you're wrong to mess with black history. You're wrong to mess with migrants. You're wrong to mess with gays. You're wrong to mess with Fannie Mae Hammond and Dorothy Height and Sojourner Truth and Rosa Parks. You're wrong. And we come to do what the prophet said. What does the Lord require of thee? But to love justly, to do justly and love mercy, and to walk humbly with thy God. Bishop Rudolph McKissick.
To Reverend Al Sharpton, to Dr. R.B. Holmes, to all of the clergy, to all of the elected officials, to all of you God's children. I stand here today as a member of the board of directors of the National Action Network and as the pastor of the oldest Baptist church in the state of Florida. If this governor had his way, this would not be happening today, not simply because of what we're marching for, but because as I look at this audience, it is an audience of diversity, inclusion, and equity. In Ron DeSantis' world, we would not even be allowed to gather because of the differences that are here. Someone needs to help him to understand that different does not mean deficient. And sir, the lying talking points of your Republican Party will not stand. We are not saying you don't want black history, but what we're saying is we won't let you have it your way. We will not let you tell our story from your perspective. We will not let you redact our history so your children are comfortable. The reality is your children and other generations can be comfortable now because our ancestors were uncomfortable for years. We've come on this day to declare unto you that we will not allow you to simply have the facts of our history without the story of our history. Because, Governor, if it were not for diversity, you couldn't be the governor. You are not a Native American. You weren't here to begin with. It is diversity that allowed you to be the governor. You don't get the right to play it for yourself and take it from other people. We are here not just about an AP college course. Please don't miss the forest for the trees. We are also here because you have had the audacity to cover up books in our public schools. Take out books about Rosa Parks and Hank Aaron and Roberto Clemente. You have had the nerve to say you will take funding from schools that have any courses on equity, inclusion, and diversity. That is why we are here today. And the reality is, Mr. Governor, if you don't want our story, you don't want our students. If you don't want our story, you shouldn't get our students. I wonder what would happen if every D1 athlete went into the transfer portal and found a school that wants their story. I wonder what would happen if churches and private schools got so much funding that we could take our children out of your public school. Because if you don't want our story, you don't want our students. I wonder what would happen if we began to hit you in the pocketbook. I wonder what would happen if the nation stood up and saw that Florida is saying, you will not make this country to be a big Florida that you want. We are here today to serve notice on you that we will not stand for it. We are not just marching, but we're coming to effect change. Finally, I heard you say that Florida is the state where woke comes to die. You obviously are not a Christian, because if you were, you would know that the last time they tried to kill something, God raised it up in 3 days. We came to tell you, Governor, you just resurrected woke with more power than it has ever had. Thank you for trying to kill it, because now God is going to resurrect it.
First of all, I would like to thank all of you for being here right now. My name is State Senator Chevron Jones, and I have the privilege of serving the 34th Senate District. And before I even get into my message, I know that they might have the majority in here. But the majority is out here. And I follow Bishop McKissick, and I follow every word that has come out already. That today we serve notice that you believe woke, where Florida is where woke comes to die. But we want you to arise and wake up, because we are wide awake and we see you for who you are. We thank you, Reverend Sharpton, and to all the elected officials who are here today. But I want to tell you all that we have seen this before. We have been here before. In censoring black people, in censoring marginalized people, we have always stood up and we've always rose to the occasion. This dangerous practice has always been used by those who want to stunt progress, sow fear and division, and hide important truths. Black history is American history. Black queer history is American history. Black immigrant history is American history. And I want to remind Governor DeSantis and my Republican colleagues, while you think it's still 1963, it is 2023. And the people who stand here today, we're stronger than ever. We're louder than ever. And we're more powerful than we have ever been here in this moment. What we are dealing with here in this moment, the structure of a system that continues to perpetuate racism across this country, not just in Florida. The fight is not just about AP history. The fight is against this strong uprising of racism from people who are seeing the shifting of America. While the full and accurate historical record might make some of you uncomfortable, I'm happy that it makes you uncomfortable. Because as human beings, we should be repulsed by the inhumane treatment of historically excluded groups in the United States. But I come to serve notice that for all of us out here, but if you can fight for black people, you better be ready to fight for the LGBTQ community. You better be ready to fight for the immigrant community. You better be ready to fight for the women of our community. Everybody who is marginalized, if you come for one of us, you come for all of us. While we're sitting here talking about American history, and while we're sitting here talking about African studies, I want to remind you that right now we have over 300,000 people in April who will be wiped from the Medicaid roll. This is a distraction. While we're sitting here having this discussion here, he's forgetting that there were black people in Miami Gardens right now who are displaced, and we have not heard one word from the governor's office. This is their distraction. But here's what I come to say, that we come with the numbers. We come with the people, and we come to serve notice here today that while you believe, well, this is where woke comes to die, we are wide awake, and we will arise today, because if God is for us, who can be against us? We've seen this before, we've won before, and we'll win again.
It was about 3 weeks ago when I called my elder brother, the Reverend Al Sharpton, and I said to him, Al, we've got to do something, because we can no longer allow this governor to go unimpeded, treating people like he was elected to be a pastor when he was elected to be a governor, trying to wrap his theology in the American flag. Without hesitation, with no questions, he immediately said, I'll be there. And you for justice, the Reverend Al Sharpton.
No justice.
No peace.
No justice.
No peace.
No justice. No justice. No justice. No justice. What do we want?
Justice.
What do we want?
Now.
What do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
All right. First of all, let me thank Senator Jones and all of the legislators that have stood with him. And let me thank Reverend R.B. Holmes, who pastors Bethel and our National Action Network chapter in Tallahassee, and our national board member, Bishop McKissick, and all of the ministers, and all of the community leaders, and all of the civil rights groups, and all of the groups from different communities. Make note that we are all marching together. LGBTQ, those that are Native American, those that are Latinx. You should have left us alone. Now you have brought us all together. Let me, since they want to mess with history, let me give them a little history. Every time we've got to an inflection point in terms of racism and bigotry, it was always around education. In slavery, it was against the law for us to read and write. And if whites taught us how to read and write, they could be indicted, prosecuted, or maybe executed. After 57 years of Jim Crow, it was education, Brown versus the Board of Education, that kicked off in 1954, that inspired Rosa Parks to sit down a year later in 1955. If you would study history, Governor, you would have known to mess with us in education always ends to your defeat. I read that he said something about some things making some folk uncomfortable. Well, we were uncomfortable when y'all had Confederate statues around Florida. We were uncomfortable when a wannabe cop killed a 16-year-old boy named Trayvon Martin. And you wouldn't even arrest him, talking about stand your ground. And we came down here by the thousands and forced his arrest. We were uncomfortable when you acquitted him. But maybe you stopped reading history, because even though Trayvon killer walked, we're now in the era where George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and those killers are in jail this morning. You talk about Florida is where woke dies. Well, only sleepy folk thinks the process stops with woke. When you wake up, you get up and you go to work. We ain't laying in the bed woke, we up. And we went from woke to work. That's his new name, Baby Trump. People got together, black, Latino, women, LGBTQ. We beat Big Trump, we'll beat Baby Trump. And you can tell he's a baby, he's in the crib rattling around. After Disney one day, after blacks the next day, after, just like a baby. Give him a pacifier and let some grown folk run the state of Florida. We cannot afford for our young folk, and I was so glad to see the majority of the march, young folk. Because not only are we not going to be separated
by our different lifestyles. We're not going to be separated by our age. Young folk leading the march, old folk puffing, not me, but the other guys trying to puff up the hill. Because this is not about fighting each other. This is about fighting to tell all of our stories. My great-grandfather was named Coleman Sharpton. He was a slave in South Carolina that was sold to Wabassa, Florida. You're going to tell his story. Right here, we had to fight segregation. You're going to tell the whole story. Yes, sir. Right here, you didn't want Nelson Mandela to come. You're going to tell the whole story. Right here in Miami Beach, we couldn't go to the beach until we marched, until we sat in and went to jail. You're going to tell the whole story. Right here in Jacksonville, they poured all kind of poison in a pool because they didn't want blacks to stay in a hotel. You're going to tell the whole story. You're not going to give no part-time story to our story. Our children need to know the whole story. Not to not only know how bad you were, but to know how strong they are. They come from a people that fought, and God was on our side. And the same God that brought us from segregation, the same God that brought us from slavery, the same God is still on the throne. We're going to walk together. We're going to march together. We're going to stand together. We won't turn back. Now let me say this, and I'll let you go. We must start today of women, of Latinos, of LGBTQ. We need to have a baby Trump voter registration drive. We need to make it clear that we will vote in every election, not on a party, but on an agenda. And anyone that does not stand up in this room or in this building for us, we're going to stand up against them. You picking a fight, you're going to get a fight. And we're going to register people to vote from one end of Florida to the next. Why? Because if we can't protect education in Florida, it'll jump to Alabama, it'll jump to Texas. This is a national drive that we cannot afford them to allow us to happen. Notice how, as we marched peacefully. We marched, as I said, diverse. We marched intergenerational. Don't let them choose your weapon. They will try to turn one against the other. Some reporter asked me, will blacks and gays work together? Like there are no black gays. Some of us are black and gay at the same time. And all of them ain't out of the church. So let's quit jiving each other. First gays I met was in the church. We know how to come together. And we must choose to fight our way. There was a time when they're in the Bible. A lot of y'all don't want to deal with the Bible. The Bible is a civil rights struggle. Second book of the Bible was about exodus of slaves. If you want to choose certain history, baby Trump, you might have to get the book of Exodus out the Bible. You might have to get the book of Esther out the Bible, who fought against genocide. You're going to have to get a whole lot out the Bible if you talk about what's uncomfortable. The wicked always got uncomfortable. The insidious always got uncomfortable. Martin Luther King said, we come to make the comfortable uncomfortable and to make the uncomfortable comfortable. We in the uncomfortable business.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But there was a battle of the Philistines against the Israelites.
Yes, sir.
And they came down to a battle point. And this huge giant came down to face the children of Israel. All of those that had been trained in military maneuvers and had worked at knowing how to do battle and were combat specialists was afraid to fight. A little boy, a shepherd boy, running an errand for his daddy, just happened to come by to bring some stuff to his brothers. And somebody said to him that we don't want to fight this giant. He said, who is this giant that defies the people of Israel? He said, nobody else want to fight. I'll fight this giant. And Saul tried to tell him, don't fight. King Saul said, you just a lad. He said, I come to fight. I ain't been to military school. I ain't been to combat training. But I'll fight because the same God that brought us this far will bring us on. Saul said, well, if you're going to fight, put on my breastplate. Put on my helmet. Take my sword. And little David said, I can't fight with your breastplate. I don't know nothing about your headgear. I don't need your sword. Just give me a slingshot and a few smooth stones and tell this giant to let's get it on. I come to Tallahassee to tell you I don't have a lot of funding, but I got a slingshot. I don't have a lot of connections, but I got a slingshot. I don't have a lot of folk backing me in the editorial room, but I got a slingshot. I don't have what you used to, baby Trump, but I got a slingshot. And the God I serve will make a way out of no way. The God I serve will open up the history books and tell the whole story. The God I serve will make a way for his children. We'll stand together. We'll march together. We'll fight together. We got our slingshots. We got our slingshots. We got our slingshots.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Reverend Sharpton. Sydney, will you come? The chapter president at FAMU. Sydney, will you come? You fought into a great man.
My expectations are high. Greetings, everyone. Hello. I'm Sydney Aitchison. I'm a fourth-year broadcast journalism major at the illustrious Florida A&M. And I currently serve as the FAMU NAACP chapter president. Thank you. It's with esteemed pleasure to serve you all and stand up here today and talk about the social injustices that we're having in our community right now. Diversity matters, equity matters, inclusion matters, and most importantly, Black history matters. As a student at Florida A&M University, I've enjoyed learning about my history, my roots, but it's slowly being taken away from me. I would like to first say thank you, FAMU, FSU, and TCC for making it your duty to fight and coming out here today, because this is directly affecting us and the future generations to come. So right now what we're doing is building these gates so that the future generations can walk through these gates and can see what we did and put in place for them so that they will no longer have to go through this. This rally is important not only for the community, but the students, because this is directly affecting all of us. Not just Black people, not just white people, but everyone. DeSantis is attempting to overthrow academic liberties, erase history, and write his own story. But this is history. This is not his story, not DeSantis' story. This is our history. He wants to ban diversity, equity, and inclusion, funding for new colleges, universities, public universities. He wants to take out AP African American history courses in public schooling. But who is he to tell us what we can and can't learn? Who is he to tell us that we got to put a covering over a book and what we can't read? So what we're going to do is we're going to continue to teach it in our churches, instill it to our little brothers and sisters, instill it into our family, put it in Bible school, put it everywhere, because our history will not go unknown. Without history, without Black history, there's no history. So my question to you is, what's next? Is it Black history in school systems? Is it everything? What's a world without Black history? So I end this to say, we have many different leaders. We have great leaders standing up here, but our number one leader is God. And we must turn to him, lift him up in prayer, and pray our way out of this, and continue to do the groundwork.
Yeah, we do. We have. Reverend Sharpton, the great movement, Loudmouth, going to be shown at the Bethel Church. Also, we have some books that Dr. Reverend Sharpton has already authored. You ought to get your book at the Bethel Church. Professor Azel.
Good afternoon. My name is Janine Uzel, and I'm the CEO for the National Society of Black Engineers. I'm deeply grateful for this opportunity you have given us to join you here in support of this March for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion here in Tallahassee. I became the CEO of the National Society of Black Engineers in July of 2021 after more than 20 years as a member and an engineer myself. Hired by the College of Students who lead our 48-year-old organization to refocus our work on the social injustices at the root of underrepresentation of Black people in STEM. I stand here representing more than 13,000 student professional members in the United States and abroad, including our nearly 350 students here at colleges like FAMU and Florida State University, at elementary schools, middle and high schools across the state. All of us are committed to empowering communities by increasing the number of culturally responsible Black engineers and ending the underrepresentation of Black people in STEM. So what do I mean when I say underrepresentation? I mean that Black people are 13.6% of the population in this country, but only 4% of the college students graduating with engineering bachelor degrees. I mean that of the 179,000 engineers in Florida in 2020, only 6.8% of us were Black. I mean that nationwide, Black people were only 9% of the STEM workforce in the United States in 2021. I mean that Black people who have overcome the obstacles. I mean that Black people who have overcome the obstacles and the odds to obtain STEM degrees are still greatly underrepresented in the highest paying jobs in STEM. NSBE's mission is to graduate academically excellent, professionally successful, socially relevant Black engineers from college, along with other Black STEM practitioners, to empower Black communities. And we are good at it. The average GPA of our members is 3.39, including our more than 7,000 collegiate members. But NSBE work begins at the K through 12 level.
You're good. Finish. Take your time.
But NSBE's work begins at the K through 12 level, educating Black children about their own talent, their own self-worth, their own potential to empower their communities and change the world with their intellect, their creativity, and their knowledge of STEM. For our children, the study of Black history, our true Black history, is about history of the world, is the reminder that we have a place and that we must continue to fight for it. We have passed down these historical accounts of who we are and have contended against the colonization that has consistently stitched the thread of silence on our lips, jealous of our straightened backs and our lifted heads. This battle has already been fought and won. We will not prove ourselves again. We will not be silenced anymore. We know who we are, and we will be that. The notion of removing our stories from the legacy of our history and future that we are building is a poignant indication of the world's fear of our power. But our resilience is sure. Our story has been burned from the pages of history, a smoldering flame brushed aside and overlooked. We are a part of this nation's history, and yet it is proposed that to deny us our freedom to learn our stories would be an acceptable idea. It is proposed that the world would find its liberty and justice for all through a lens of bias and gaps in the story. Out of context, one-sided perspectives continue to promote the racial inequality that we are.
United, we stand. We need leaders who create good jobs, not anti-woke mobs, because united, we stand. We need lower property and from out of the state. We need all of you, if you're watching, if we're going to have any chance to make any difference, we need you to stay involved. We need you to stay at America's future.
Matters. It should not be taken out of our schools and institutions. Attending a PWI, where I am a minority, and there are other many organizations here that are pushing to be the voice for the minority, and our governor wants to take that away. Our governor has no right to take our history out. We live and thrive off of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Like Sydney said, will Black History Month be next? It's bigger than us. We have a future generation that needs to know about our history. We will continue to fight, and we will not be silenced until our history will stay relevant. Our history matters, and we matter. And we will continue to come together to push and fight for what is right.
I'm a member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated at Florida A&M. All of the young people out there to vote, to get in the front lines of these movements, and to be a shaker and a mover, to not just sit and complain, because we can make change if we get off of our feet. And I thank you all.
Members of the press interested in a press gaggle with Reverend Sharpton, Senator Jones, and members of the legislature to please come behind me to the Senate portico that is covered for the press gaggle. Any members of the media, members of the press who are interested in a press gaggle with Senator Jones, Reverend Sharpton, and members of the legislature, please come behind me under the Senate portico for the gaggle.
Where's Nee Smith? Will you come and give us the poem? Nee, will you come? Reverend Nelson Rivers, will you come and give us closing prayer? You ready? Close it out. Come on, okay, I will. Reverend Don Tolliver, that's right.